the keynote yesterday, we heard how SAP is opening up their developer ecosystem and how we are already compatible with a lot of different AI agent frameworks out there. And this flexibility is really one of the things I love most about our AI strategy. Now, I will show you how you can build an AI agent using LangGraph and Gen AI Hub. So my colleague Riley came up to me the other day, and he told me about all the things that he has to do to quality test a tutorial on developers.sap.com. And he asked me if we couldn't automate that using a browser, using an AI agent, right? And I was like, yeah, of course we can. Love to do that. Yeah, so what I did was I immediately started thinking about which tools my AI agent would need to actually be able to test a tutorial. So first of all, it definitely needs browser access, right? Because I wanted to be able to open BTP and all those services. Then I'm going to use the Playwright MCP server for that to automate the browser automation. Then I also needed to have access to a terminal so that it can create files, write code, and actually also run code. And I wanted to have access to the grounding service of AI Foundation in case it needs to look up any SAP-specific information. Okay, so this is the tutorial that we will be testing here today. Actually, we won't be testing it. The agent is hopefully going to test it, right? And it's a tutorial about how to create an orchestration workflow in AI Launchpad. So it's supposed to look something like this in the end, right? And this is my code. So here you can see that I am using the SAP Cloud SDK for AI in the Python version to initialize my model, so the Gen AI Hub SDK. And I'm using one of the over 30 models that we have available. Here I'm using Claude 4 Sonnet. And then here you can see that I'm using the prompt registry of Gen AI Hub so that I can actually store my agent prompt there because these prompts can get rather large and I want to keep it separately from my code base. Okay, what else? Here we have the MCP server, the Playwright MCP server I use to automate browser access. And then we actually can already create our agent. So here you can see that I create the agent and I'm adding the LLM as the brain, right, and all the tools that it needs to actually test a tutorial for me. Okay, now we can actually already run our agent. I'm going to stream the response so that we can see what it's thinking. Okay, so this is the live stream. I'm running this, so I hope it does what I want it to do, but it's an AI agent, you never know. Okay, so I'm not doing anything anymore, right? This is all the agent now. What it is supposed to do now, yeah, exactly, okay, it did it, that's good. So what happens now is that the agent sends all the information it has. So the agent prompt, all the tools it has available, and obviously the tutorial instructions in Markdown to the LLM. The LLM then reads this entire tutorial, creates like a step-by-step of what it wants to do and how it can get through this tutorial. And then, very important, it decides on which tool to use first. So in this case, it used the Navigate To tool to open AI Launchpad, which it did. Then the tool returns the current state. So for example, a screenshot of the web page, or it extracts the HTML code and sends that back to the agent. Now the agent takes all that information, and also, again, all the history of what the agent did until now, takes that, sends it back to the LLM. The LLM checks the state it's at, checks what it should do next in the tutorial, decides on which tool to use next, for example, a click tool or filling in the variables here, sends that back to the agent. The agent actually calls the tool, and, well, you get the point, right? It does that over and over and over again until it actually tested this entire tutorial for us. And then what it should do in the end is obviously give us feedback on this tutorial so that my colleague Riley doesn't have to test all these tutorials himself anymore, right? Okay, so you might have noticed something here. It's now creating all these little modules and does everything as described in the tutorial, but it skipped the first module, the grounding one. We'll see it in a bit when it goes to the next module, because that was actually not part of the tutorial, right? Because this is a rather new feature that was released after the tutorial was created. So the agent got a little bit confused and didn't really know what to do with it. So if it just skipped it. So if I would be the tutorial tester here, I would give that as feedback, right? That you should say what the tutorial user is doing with this module. So I hope it actually gives that as feedback. I obviously don't know because, well, you never know. So once this agent is done configuring all these steps, it should just close the browser window and give us feedback. How much time do I have? A minute. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it configures the last things, the translation part. Okay, and then it will just close it any second now and give me feedback. Okay, hold on. Tutorial structure clarity, it always says that. Okay, here it says, it's very dramatic about it, but it does have a point. The grounding module confusion. So it was a little bit confused by the grounding module, and it says the tutorial should mention whether to disable it or whatever to do with it. Anyway, it's really good feedback. That's exactly what I would have given as well. So Riley, I think good news for you. You can use this to at least pre-scan the tutorials from now on, so you don't have to do it yourself. Hi, Riley, by the way.